Hey, Dark Friends. I've got some not great news. This will be the last episode of What Spoilers with Patrick as a regular host. We sat down and decided to talk a little bit about the future of the podcast, and he let me know that he was not interested in continuing as the main host of the podcast. So I wish him all the best. I hope that he does come back on the podcast in the future, and certainly don't have any hard feelings on my end, and I hope he feels the same way. What Spoilers will be continuing. I don't think I can stop. I don't think I would stop. I don't think that I want to stop. But I am going to take the next month of August off. This will be the last episode. I've turned off Patreon for this month, as some of you may have noticed. That's just so I can do some rig configuring. I'm hoping to be a little more active, both as a guest spot in other podcasts, and hopefully on some YouTube channels. I'd like to join certain folks that I'm sure you're aware of that have invited me on and I haven't followed up with. So I'm hoping to get on that and be more active there. And then hopefully they return the favor so that I can have some voices that you're familiar with on the podcast as guest hosts. I'm also hoping to have a bunch of you on. You know, I've heard a lot of your voices before, and I'd like to continue to feature them on the podcast opposite mine. I don't think I want to do this by myself. I don't think I'm ever going to sit down by myself and record a full episode. I like the conversational nature of the podcast. As for another regular host besides myself, that's something I may find. For right now, that's not something I'm deciding on. So that's partially why I'm going to take this next month off and just make a few decisions, as well as just there's some paperwork and stuff to take care of. But you know, the place where I turn when I'm not feeling great is the wheel of time. So there's no way for me to stop this. But yeah, for everybody who, if you're interested, please send me an email at whatspoilers@gmail.com. And if you could just go ahead and put guest spot in the subject line, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you to Patrick. He did this with me for more than 3 years. And it's been an amazing experience. And, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better friend.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. This is Chapter 8, The Storm Gathers. And our symbol is the stone ring terengrial. And I think the storm gathers is kind of appropriate. This is like we were just saying this. There's recap. There's a lot of kind of things that are about to happen. Nynaeve's working on healing, stilling,
and the literal sense. I think we're seeing Nynaeve use her storm sense to sense trouble coming, including Elida's emissary showing up, and the symbol's the Adom, because I think that's a Moghedian reference, because she's stuck in the Adom for this chapter, and Nynaeve is wearing the bracelet. So even though there's no Sean Chan involved, the Adom is prominent.
Oh, you're right. I just looked at that and totally misinterpreted it. That's the symbol is the Adom, not the stone ring. I called it the stone ring terengrial.
Oh yeah, no, not in this case.
I was looking at the spinny circular, and I was like, oh, that's the... No, it's not.
I do really like that the artist put this in a bit of a figure 8, so it sort of resembles the infinity symbol, even though it's...
Mm-hmm.
Whoever did the chapter icons, I always say, did a remarkably good job.
Especially with how simple they are. I like them a lot, too.
They make good tattoos, as many people have discovered. And that's a very good property in an icon.
I'm nodding. I'm going to do this read, which is longish, but I actually don't have very much for the rest of the chapter to read. Nynaeve woke the next morning, at first light, feeling grumpy. She had a sense of bad weather coming, yet a glance out of the window revealed not a single cloud marring the still gray sky. Already, the day promised to be another oven. Her shift was sweat-damp and twisted from tossing and turning. Once she had been able to rely on her ability to listen to the wind, but it seemed to have gone all askew since leaving the two rivers, when it did not desert her completely. Waiting her turn to use the washstand did not help either, nor listening to Elaine's recital of what had happened after she left them in a light of study. Her own night had been one of long, futile search through the streets of Tarvalon, empty, save for herself. Pigeons, rats, and heaps of garbage. That had been a shock. Tarvalon was always kept spotless. Elida must be neglecting the city terribly for garbage to show in Teleran Riyadh. Once she had glimpsed Leanne through the window of a tavern near South Harbor, of all places, but when she hurried inside, the common room was empty, except for the freshly painted blue tables and benches. She should have just given up, but Myrelle had been badgering her lately, and she wanted a clear conscience when she told the woman that she had tried. Myrelle could pounce on an evasion as quickly as anyone Nynaeve had ever seen or heard of. To finish it off, she had stepped out of Teleran Riyadh last night to find Elaine's ring already back on the table, and Elaine fast asleep. If there had been a prize for useless effort, she would have won it walking away. And now, to learn that Shiriam and the rest had nearly gotten themselves killed, even the song sparrow's chirping in its wicker cage earned a sour look. "They think they know everything," Nynaeve muttered despairingly. "I told them about nightmares, warned them, and last night was not the first time." It made no difference that all 6 sisters had been healed before she so much as got back from Teleran Riyadh. Much too easily it could have ended much worse, because they thought they knew it all. The irritated tug she gave her braid delayed redoing it for the day. The Adam bracelet sometimes caught on her hair, too, but she was not about to take it off. It was Elaine's turn to wear it today, but she was just as likely to leave it on a peg on the wall. Worry trickled through the bracelet, and the inevitable fear. But more than anything else, frustration. Doubtless, Marrigan was already helping with breakfast. Having to do chores seemed to grate at her more than being a prisoner did. "That was good thinking on your part, Elaine. You didn't say how you ended up in it yourself after trying to warn everybody else." Still scrubbing with her face cloth, Elaine shuddered. It wasn't so hard to think of it. A nightmare that size needed all of us to handle. Maybe they learned a little humility. Maybe their meeting with the Wise Ones tonight won't be so bad. Nynaeve nodded to herself, as she had thought. Not about Shiriam and the others. Aes Sedai would find humility when goats flew on wings, and a day before the Wise Ones at that. About Elaine. She had probably let herself be caught in the nightmare, though the girl would never admit it. Nynaeve was not sure whether Elaine thought taking credit for bravery was boasting, or whether she simply did not realize how brave she was. Either way, Nynaeve was torn between admiration for the other woman's courage and a wish that just once Elaine would acknowledge it. "I thought I saw Rand." That brought the face cloth down. Was he there in the flesh? That was dangerous, according to the Wise Ones. It risked losing some part of what made you human. You warned him about that. When did he start listening to sense? I only glimpsed him. Maybe he just touched Teleran Riyadh in a dream. Unlikely that. He apparently hedged his dreams with wards so strong she did not think he could reach the world of dreams any other way than in the flesh, not even if he had been a dreamwalker, and had one of the rings. Maybe he was somebody who looked a little like him. As I said, I only saw him for a moment, in the square, in front of the tower. I figured I'd cut it there. Yeah, Nynaeve thought she saw Leanne for a second in a tavern where all the tables were painted blue, but she went to go see if Leanne was there. But she walks in and she just sees all the blue painted furniture. And I think that's a sign. Aradia says she thinks it's a response to Leanne's messages. I thought it might have just been a regular, the kind of sign that, like, when Nynaeve finds the Makura woman, as she likes to say, the, like, upside-down yellow flowers. That means that there is a message, and she knows that's a sign from the yellow Aja, but the blues have other things.
So here's my assumption, is Leanne knows she can access Teleran Riyadh, has sent a message to informant and says, "Hey, if this fact is true, paint your tables blue." And then she goes to the place in Teleran Riyadh and can say, "Oh, I don't actually have to send someone to check and see whether this is a true or false thing. I can just check and see if the tables are blue or if the tables are painted red." And by checking that...
And you only have to be there for a second. That's pretty genius.
Right. And so it's a way that information can be passed to her from someone who can't enter Teleran Riyadh. And so she's getting a message back. Now, what that message is, I have no idea. Could have been someone saying they sport the blue. Could have been anything.
Yeah. Do we have any idea, guys, or do we just know that this is a way that a method Leanne is using to collect information? I think that maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we know she's got all sorts of spies within Tarvalon.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, by the way, when you said blue tables, I was thinking like a spreadsheet, like a table of blues.
Oh,
And I was like, what do you mean blue tables? I'm very confused. And then you started listing off like blue Aes Sedai, although I guess Muriel's green, so never mind. Myrell. Oh, I always call her Muriel. So, by the way, here's another line. Myrell had been badgering her lately, which I think we figured out in the last episode was because Myrell was recently bonded to Lan when Moraine, quote-unquote, died.
Yeah, and she's still kind of being really weird to Nynaeve right now. I think it's because Myrell is partly in Lan's head, who's having thoughts about Nynaeve, whatever those thoughts might be. Myrell isn't fond of seeing them or feeling them.
And I don't think Myrell wants to pass Lan on. I think she wants to keep him for herself. And so she's like finding reasons. No? I mean, I know she's doing it for Moraine, but...
Yeah, and Myrell was tight with Swan and Moraine while they were coming up.
Yeah, I think it's a little messy, right? She wants to make sure Nynaeve is ready, but that means, of course, she's going to come down harder on her, and then it's like that, well, why shouldn't I keep it?
Yeah, she's kind of pushing her in a lot of different ways, but also she's sometimes encouraging as well. So at first, I wasn't sure how to interpret it, if it's jealousy or what.
I think it's a little bit of both, yeah.
Having all that in your head has to be a super awkward and weird thing to deal with as well,
Well, yeah. But that's her fourth warder, so she's got 3 other dudes, as we saw here. Yeah, where Nynaeve's like, her 3 warders, and I was like, not quite. Her 4th warder just ain't in the building.
That's a good point too, Murtaugh. Even if Myrell's intent is to pass Lan to Nynaeve at some point, nobody knows when that'll be. I mean, Nynaeve can't even channel at will. There's no way she could be raised at this point.
Yeah, which is interesting, because she is technically raised to Aes Sedai before she breaks her block.
But that's Egwene, right? That's when Egwene gets it. Yeah.
And that's that, like, half. They even actually bring it up here with
Theodrin.
Is it Theodrin? Yeah.
I
with
think,
Theodrin, who's in that halfway space.
I had forgotten Theodrin's story. That's much later in the chapter, but I'd remember that she had a block and everything herself. But I had forgotten that it was about boys. It was like,
yeah. Oh, I love that story.
It was about cute boys. Yeah.
It turns out Cheryl was really Meryl.
I'll maybe read it since we're bringing it up. Here, I found it already. Because this is Nynaeve and Theodrin talking kind of toward the end of the chapter. But Nynaeve is asking how Theodrin broke her block, which was, Theodrin describes as, well, it's emotion too, responding to what Nynaeve's hang-ups are. If there was a man present, and I liked or disliked him a great deal, I could channel. If I felt neither one way nor the other, or there wasn't a man at all, I might as well have been a tree, so far as Saidar was concerned. How did you ever break through that? Nynaeve asked curiously. Theodrin's smile deepened. I'm skipping a bit. But a blush stained her cheeks, too. A young man named Charrel, a groom in the tower stables, began making eyes at me. I was 15, and he had the most gorgeous smile. The Aes Sedai let him sit in on my lessons, quietly, in a corner, so I could channel at all. What I didn't know was that Shiriam had arranged for him to meet me in the first place. Her cheeks darkened more. I also didn't know that he had a twin sister, or that after a few days, that Cheryl, sitting in the corner, was really Meryl. When she took off her coat and shirt one day in the middle of my lesson, I was so shocked I fainted, but after that, I could channel whenever I wanted.
I love that story.
Good job, Shiriam. Good job.
And I like how it addresses the mechanics of breaking the bond, which is if you can channel in a place. How am I going to put this? If you can only channel under certain circumstances, right? And you think you're channeling under those circumstances, and then it's revealed you weren't, well, then you've broken your bond, because it turns out you were channeling, and the whole idea behind breaking your bond is all it takes is once of channeling in a situation on the other side of your block, right?
Yeah.
All Nynaeve has to do is give up once. All Theodrin had to do was not channel in the presence of a man once, and then the block is broken. And for me, the fainting was the breaking of that block was that emotional sort of trauma when she realizes that she's broken through. Where Nynaeve has sort of a different situation where she breaks through the block first and then realizes it later.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny that anger's involved, and I always thought, I never really put it in this context in my head, maybe, until you were just saying that Nynaeve she can't channel at will until she learns how to surrender. And I always thought of that as kind of an analogy for surrendering to Saidar, but also in a general sense, Nynaeve never surrenders. She never backs down, even when she knows she's wrong. It's one of her big personality flaws. I just never kind of put those two things together.
Especially when she knows she's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. The more pressure you apply to her, the more prickly and resistant she'll get. She's just
so
like
what
that.
You're saying, the more force directed at her makes her stronger. So
yeah.
She's Quendiar.
It's like making a diamond. Yes. Do you see Jester's question? I don't know how to approach this.
Could a block be broken in tar if everyone
believes she can channel, believes she doesn't? Would that assist? Maybe. I see how you could use...
I mean, for all the same reasons. Yeah. I believe No, I don't think you could, everyone around her could make
just
her
will
break
it
her
to
block.
happen.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to agree with that. I just don't feel like it would go that way. I honestly don't have much to back it up. But I feel like using Teleran Riyadh as a therapeutic, because you could build all these different situations and you could use it for training, things that are...
Right. And maybe make it a little safer, because you could,
Yeah, set up some safeguards and stuff. But I think nothing that complex ever really happens in Teleran Riyadh. You could, though.
Again, this is the syndrome of, I've been thinking about a lot, underutilized mechanics in the Wheel of Time universe.
Mm-hmm.
Channeling, Teleran Riyadh, the ways, all of these things, once you can do them, if you start taking them to a logical conclusion, they start becoming ridiculously powerful.
I feel like toward the end of the series, some of the characters are getting there,
Mm-hmm.
or almost fully actually.
A lot of our channelers are limited by simply imagination more than anything else. And that's why a lot of people are like, well, why don't they blah? And I'm like, because they didn't think of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because that's not the way it's done. It's what I think a lot of people would say.
And I think we see that change in Rand's schools, and hopefully the philosophy that Rand applies in the schools can spread out to the Black and White Tower, the innovation, and then integrating those things together. I mean, good God, imagine if you could make an engine reinforced with the one power, or powered by the one power, right?
You could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
In theory. You could make that the eagle made out of fire and fly to the moon. What was the story Tom told? I forgot the name of the guy.
Yeah.
Len, yeah.
And his daughter, Salia, yeah. Yeah, the Jokars and the show wings seem to really be just like... I always think of those as Terangrials that use the one power, the standing flows, as we know they had in the Age of Legends, to create low-weight flying or driving mechanics, show wings and Jokars. The whole standing waves with Terangrial is such an interesting... It's basically power lines and appliances.
Nodding.
Nynaeve figures out that Elaine stepped into the nightmare on purpose, which we know.
But I mean, to help, that she thought that was the only way she could get everyone out.
Yeah, which is true. I don't think it would have been successful any other way.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And then there's this line about Rand, which I use when we talk about how, do we think Rand is a dreamer? It's like, we don't get a lot of evidence. I think of this line. Apparently, he hedged his dreams with wards so strong, she did not think he could reach the world of dreams any other way than in the flesh. Mm-hmm. Not even if he had been a dreamwalker and had one of the rings. So that really, he is so... Once he learns how to block his dreams away, he is extremely closed off from the world of dreams, except in the flesh.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame him.
No. Not after Lanfear and the Wise Ones, and I mean, he's just had a lot of people fucking with his head. And that hasn't stopped even by closing off the World of Dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are still fucking with his head, because Alana gets in his head here in a minute. She bonds
Gathering
him.
Storm.
Yeah.
The Storm Gathers, I think, was the name of this chapter, or something.
The Storm Gathers, which, interesting parallel there with the Gathering Storm.
Yeah.
You got to wonder if Sanderson didn't maybe look back at chapter titles to look for book titles, or if somehow there's a relationship there.
See Maggedian doing dishes all morning.
This just to point out some of the hypocriticalness of, like, she doubted he thought of her half as often as she did of him. Of course, Lan thinks of her constantly. Like, meanwhile, and she thinks about Lan constantly. Meanwhile, telling Elaine, "Don't concern yourself over a man all the time." There's like 3 layers of hypocriticalness in that one statement. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Take your own, take your own advice, Nynaeve. And there's this bit about Myrell, I feel like, over the next page or so. I don't know if you want to get at any of that, but I feel like we kind of covered it.
Yeah, just Nynaeve is looking for something to do, so she goes to see Moghedien to see if she can, learn something interesting from her, but she's busy washing dishes, getting her hands all wrinkly. Poor baby.
Like some kind of primitive.
Yeah. No, okay, so she ducks into the tent to avoid Myrell, and Logain is there.
Yeah.
And that was the next thing I wanted to talk about.
I had actually forgotten. I had set this Logain's story to just read. Do you feel like I should read it, or do we feel like we're pretty well briefed on Logain's accusations against the Red Aja?
I think we're pretty well briefed, but I want to talk about the individuals that he brings up.
Okay. So basically, beginning part, 6 Red Sisters found me in Cozumel about a year before I proclaimed myself. And he mentions a Javindra first.
And Javindra, and then he mentions a
Barasine or Barasine.
I think they're both Black Aja.
Javindra was who we were talking about, I believe, right before we flicked on recordings. And there's a lot of... I couldn't find any direct proof or like a lie or anything like that, but there are some moments that would definitely make you think she's black. And then it's confirmed later, but after she's at the Black Tower. So it's hard to say that she's definitely a Black Aja now. Does anyone want to disagree? I almost kind of want to be wrong. I think it really looks that way, but I can't prove it. Yeah.
Things that she was part of the group that took Susan Sanchez into custody. We know there was Forsaken in there and other Black, right? Totally possible. Also, the fact that Logain picked her makes me think that there may be some validity to his story, right? Yeah. And she's Black.
She's loyal to Elida and Elida's people.
Totally.
But also, Javindra's raised to be a sitter, and I feel like because of this service she's done for Elida. So it could just be, you don't have to be evil to be greedy, greedy for power. Although I guess most evil people are greedy for power, at least in fantasy universes.
And then if she acts a little weird in the Black Tower, right? There's just some weird behavior there that makes people think that she might be Black. The Wheel of Time companion claims that she was turned to the Shadow.
Yeah, that's where I got that
part
from.
of the group. So, again, I don't like the Wheel of Time, using the Wheel of Time companion as canon because it's based on notes, and notes aren't necessarily accurate, but here I will buy it. But still, I like the idea that she was Black the whole time and not necessarily turned. And then the other one she brought up, Barsane, also read. Interesting, she was close with Katarine, who's Black, so it's possible that maybe her closeness with the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Super Skylake is saying Jafindra didn't appear to be turned to the Shadow. No cold look in her eyes during Towers of Midnight, and she had been moving in to stay in the tower long before they couldn't make gateways because of the Dream Spike.
Murtaugh says, maybe when the world is falling apart, it's easy to get some last-minute recruits.
Yeah.
Shrug, and I was like, that's crossed my mind too. Like, she, particularly Javindra, feels like she, with just a little nudge, she could have pulled a Shiriam, she just wanted power. And she just wanted a little more power, a little more control, and okay, so you join this special club and you go to the meetings and they help you out. It's like the Freemasons, Except at this point, it becomes real for all of them.
And I will say that the other one survived the purge of the White Tower, so she appears not to be black either. So much for I was really hoping that we could prove, well, so she definitely appears not to be black, and according to the wiki, the other one's not black. But, I'm hoping that we can keep an eye out for evidence that Javindra's Black Ajah. Because I in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking that she is. And then that Bara Sane was just her sort of red patsy.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think they're just bad people.
Yeah, it's possible that they were just...
Or any of these things are possible.
And so Murtok is asking, isn't the Logain story here complete bullshit, completely made up? Yes and no.
I thought our conclusion was that we're not sure.
We're not sure. Yeah. We think it's a lie that happens to come really close to the truth and use a lot of the truth, and because of what the Black Ajah does and the lack of denials from the Red, it makes me really wonder if perhaps there isn't some truth in it, and that Logain is using a lot of truth.
I wouldn't doubt that either. If Swan thought she had found a rock to throw here, she would. Or if she found... Mm-hmm. Swan also talks about how, she and Leanne are even, like, acting like foolish children in front of the Aes Sedai to further to try to get the Aes Sedai to underestimate them. Another thing that Swan brings up is the Aes Sedai don't seem to realize that all the oaths don't apply anymore. Swan's like, wow, this lying thing's useful. Like, she actually says that at some point.
Yeah, so, evidence definitely points towards Swan filling in Logain on all the details he needed to fake the story. I just wanted it to be true. I just really did.
Yeah, and I think Swan is also masterful enough with this kind of, political craft that she could take something really close to the truth and be like, okay, Logain, here's how you're going to present that truth. To take down, because Logain telling the story hurts Swan's enemies and it hurts Logain's enemies. They both benefit. And that's all we know. We don't know what conversation happened behind closed doors, but I think we can all imagine.
Well, and we do have Swan saying, I made it up, right? That is pretty direct fucking evidence, right? It's hard to dismiss that. But I was kind of hoping that she hit close to the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's taking advantage of the fact that they think I said I can't lie, and no one even considers the fact that she would be a liar at this point. So,
or manipulative, which is crazy.
Yeah. Right.
It still kind of surprises me that these serious Aes Sedai. How do you forget suddenly? How do you underestimate them so much? Very shortly ago, you were all these people were your leaders.
Power is the power, and nothing else, which is a prejudice of the White Tower.
It's so silly, though, because it's just not true.
Yeah, I know. But, oh my god, the White Tower is silly. Blow me over with a fucking feather. Like, of course they...
Fair enough. Yeah. That's maybe the best way to sum that up.
We hear a little bit about Nynaeve thinking about how healing Logain's going. Not well.
I want to throw out there, before we cruise past it, that Nynaeve walks into the inn. She sees Logain telling this story to a group of, I believe they're Altaran lords and ladies. And the Aes Sedai have basically been, like... planning these visits with Logain and these Altarans, and they're not just using Logain's story against the White Tower directly, but they're spreading this rumor very much on purpose.
Absolutely, yeah, and we see it spreading. There's throughout the rest of the book, we see little references to it as people find out about this rumor and like, oh, yeah, I can believe that, because I can believe that.
And I just wanted to read. One of the ladies says, "Aes Sedai, how can what he claims be true? I do not know how, Lady Serena, Lelaine said calmly, but it was confirmed to me by one who cannot lie. He speaks true. I just noticed that and wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely her being wrong, right? She
Yeah.
believes Suan can't lie, and so...
That the Oath Ride probably still works.
Yep. And by lying to Aes Sedai and then having the Aes Sedai confirm the truth, it's...
Swan knows what she's doing. But moving forward, sorry to...
Yeah, there's a bit of a dearth of information over the next couple of chunks. Listening to Logain's story, we did that. I think now is when we get a lot of that sort of... well, I guess the next thing is her watching Suan and Bryn. So she steps out of the room, and she runs into Suan and Bryn sort of having an argument.
I don't even know what to say about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. The only thing I did say about that exchange is this sentence. The change in Bryn was lightning quick. You would be an enemy worth crossing swords with, he chuckled admiringly. You would be a better... The fast chuckle faded.
He trails off and changes the subject.
Would you like to take a guess as what she would be better at?
Wife? You'd be a better wife? That's what I thought.
I mean, sure. Yes. I'm thinking more of a bed partner. Right? Like, and like, you know, that's sort of like someone worth fighting, someone worth entangling with, someone worth crossing swords with, perhaps, in a certain parlance. I think if she had a sword...
She's got so much fire, I get it. I see what Bryn sees.
That fire turns him on. He is all about that sparky personality. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, his last love was Morghese, who's a woman who's known to have many of the same traits. Just as far as being a strong woman with the, kind of fiery reactions. I think he respects the toughness, and he likes that Swan argues with him like she's not afraid of him. I understand why that's attractive, or why it would be. Her backbone's made out of Quendiar.
Yeah, and he wants someone who's gonna like stand up to him when he like. Now this is again getting into a little bit of the Fael Perrin, almost in reverse, right? Like Gareth Bryn wants a woman who's gonna stand up to him more, who's going to be sort of. Whereas Fael is looking for Perrin to be more sort of standing up to him and fierce, and they're both looking for the same thing. They're looking for someone who is self-confident and willing to stand up for what they believe in and isn't going to roll over.
Yeah. See, Ogier saying a career-minded woman with aspirations. You'd say it that way.
But he's also there because he is arguing for marching on the White Tower. I'm assuming at this point he knows Elida sent an emissary. So he knows Elida knows where they are. And he's like, we cannot be caught here. We have to get on the march and moving.
Yeah. Bryn says, kind of at the end of their argument, you tell Shiriam she might as well stop avoiding me. What can be done here has been done. Tell her a wolfhound kept in a cage might as well be a pig when the wolves come. Sharp criticism of Shiriam's military leadership here.
Black Aja alert.
Yeah.
Shiriam is trying to stall them out. She's trying to create messes that are impossible to solve. She's trying to keep the tower split. She wants to solidify her position here in Saladar as much as possible, which is going to be terrible for the White Tower in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Aradia says his mistake is thinking Shiriam is ignorant, and I agree. Shiriam knows exactly what she's doing here.
Yeah, I'm glad he pointed that out, because it's... I think I am inclined to say, like, oh, she's dumb, or this is poor leadership, she doesn't know what she's doing, when it's easy to forget that she very likely does. And like you said, keeping the tower divided is her goal. Well, we believe it to be her goal, and she's certainly done things that brought us to that conclusion in the past. Swan and Leanne have an argument in public, so people can see them acting ridiculous.
She gets a commitment out of them to come back later for study.
Mm-hmm. Nynaeve wants to study their stealing.
Which is I think I've said this before, but I love the build up to it in this book. Like, it's foreshadowed the studying of the healing of Logain and Suan and Leanne, and it's just it's actually one of the more emotional moments, I think. Surprisingly well written.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to particularly the scene with Logain.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause there's just a lot of interesting dynamics there, and Nynaeve heals him, and they suddenly realize
It's one of Jordan's most masterfully written double scenes, because she's thinking about one thing, which is hugely important, and she's doing another thing, which is hugely important. And I can't wait to talk about both of those and the way they relate to each other and the way he weaves them together. It's a beautiful scene.
oh my gosh, guys, the storm gathers. There's a lot of things are about to happen.
Yeah, no, we're foreshadowing so much right now. Yeah, this feels like a very foreshadowy chapter, which is why I'm tangenting a lot, actually.
Lillian stepped up beside Nynaeve, looking first after Swan, then Leanne. Going around sneaking up on people? Oh, that's just Nynaeve being annoyed. There was no sign of Logain or Burin or the Altaran nobles. The Blue Sister shifted her shawl. They are not what they were, of course, but one would think they could retain a little decorum. It will not do if they actually come to hair-pulling in the streets. Nobody sees what they're doing. It blows me away.
Well, this is Lelaine of the Saladar 6, but she's one of the two who ends up being a thorn in Egwene's side. Notice that the first thing she does is ask about Egwene. Any idea where she is? And again, I think we've said this before, but the Saladar 6 have decided to make Egwene the next Amyrlin seat, and they're trying to figure out a way to contact her and figure out where she is.
Yeah, and the wise ones won't give her up.
Yep.
Right now, they're not letting anyone see Egwene.
And so that's why they're like, come on, we need to find her so we can respond to this Elida emissary. So it's all sort of coming together. Like, the Elida emissary has arrived, they're trying to pick their new Amyrlin, it's all going a little nuts.
We get a little bit, I think Nynaeve gives us a little bit on Degdara Finchi, an Aes Sedai, a yellow Aes Sedai, because we see her later running back down the street, and I think she sees this emissary from the tower coming. She literally knocks Nynaeve over.
Oh, I missed that.
Nynaeve thinks about escaping for a page or two. She thinks about Uno's offer to borrow a couple of horses whenever necessary. And she finds herself wishing that Tom and Julian were around because they'd help if she wanted to get out of there.
Well, we think about how Uno got promoted. Of course, he's now like a high up in the army, and I think he stays that way for the rest of the series. He stays higher up. Yeah, working for Bran in the Tarvalon army as a captain. He doesn't go off again with them when they go after the Bowl of Winds, does he? Pretty sure he stays behind.
No, I think he stays with Bryn. Training heavy cavalry, then that's what Uno's. Mm-hmm. That's all Uno really knows. It's where he belongs, I guess is what I'm saying.
This is something I've never noticed before. Tom and Julian have gone jaunting off to Amadisha. Now, they do go with them when they go after the Bowl of the Winds, so they must come back relatively soon.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious, I guess they're just off scouting. Doesn't seem like anything comes of that.
That's what Nynaeve, I was going to say Nynaeve says, but Nynaeve thinks. Oh, gosh. I wonder if they just kind of wanted to not be there. Not live around so many Aes Sedai.
I can't imagine why.
I see how it would be tough.
Especially after traveling with them in the circus for all that time. Maybe getting away from Nynaeve for a while is not a terrible idea.
And just everyone, the whole situation. And I don't even feel like you have to, be weird about women being in power to not want to be around Aes Sedai. Like, they're not particularly nice or accommodating or anything. They're yeah. Can you imagine, walking around and just being given orders,
And tension's high, right? Like, nobody is relaxing. They are a rebel hall. They could be attacked at any time. Everybody's worried about the future. I'm sure
that's true too.
Everybody's stressed out.
Yeah, that doesn't help anything.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly doesn't make it any more comfortable.
No, it's definitely a boiling pot. It's this cauldron of them just being stuck in one spot and doing nothing. For all this time as they like gather people.
Mm-hmm. Just looking for the next place to pick up here.
Yeah, there's a lot of nothing until we see a bunch of novice. Elaine is teaching a novice class, and we learn that they've opened up the novice books a little bit in age. I think this is the first time they mention that.
Nynaeve notes that they've even taken a few novices who are a few years older than her. Mm-hmm. And you remember that when they first took Nynaeve, they were like, I don't know, we think she's too old. Or many thought so. That was always a thing that bothered me so much about Tower politics. I've talked about this a million times on the podcast. It just, the Black Aja operating seems to become really obvious to me when I think about how, that should be like an accepted job. You should be like Mormons or something. Like you get to a certain point in your career in the White Tower, and you have to go out and proselytize. You have to go out and find other women who can channel. Bring me 5, and that's the first step to becoming an Aes Sedai or something, or whatever. Have a mini tower in every city. Accepted walking around looking for women. Why wouldn't you do that? The more powerful the tower is. It's crazy to me. You're just gonna wait for them to walk? Like how many women will never get trained because they just can't even get there?
And we see the effectiveness of that when the Black Tower. I mean, obviously they use traveling to accelerate the process, but when they actually go out and recruit, there are people out there, and that's
yeah,
they're finding people who are willing to go insane to learn to channel. The women don't even have that problem.
Yeah, if you just gave the option to so many people, they would have so many more. Ogier's asking would the Amerlin not see it as a threat to have these little mini towers in places? I guess so. I mean, I'm thinking of, I say mini tower, but more like an outpost was, I guess, what I was thinking.
Recruiting station.
That may be actually, recruiting station.
But yeah, why not have like a recruiting station in every major city, right? Like,
I mean, our nation does it. Like they send Marines to high schools and stuff, especially in rural places or poor communities where that's like it's an opportunity for young people to get out.
But can I just say fuck that?
Well, I mean, it's not great, but
yeah,
it's I don't think you should be recruiting children. That's
I also don't like that we call it an all volunteer army when it's the only way out of a incredibly unfair situation of poverty.
It often is. If you live way out there, it's going to be one of your only opportunities.
You volunteered not to live a life of incredible poverty. Congratulations. Anyway, real world politics.
Yeah, that's nothing new. The infantry have been poor people since the beginning of time, I think.
That's, unfortunately true.
If you could buy your way out of it, you would. Anyway.
The next thing is Theoden's trick, which we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Theo Cheryl was really Meryl.
Adorable. I love that story.
I like the little mirror image between the way Theodrin is dressing down Nynaeve in the exact same way that Nynaeve was dressing down Suan for avoiding her responsibilities just because they're unpleasant and you don't want to do it.
Yep, good point.
Yep.
Neither of them wants to approach this thing that's very uncomfortable for them.
Yep. And it's like, again, Nynaeve being hypocritical, her unreliable narrator, bad point of view, like, absolutely shows through again, where she can both be critical of somebody for doing exactly what she's doing at the same time.
Absolutely.
I'm really getting to the point where I'm like, okay, Jordan, we get it. Like, every single scene she was doing I can see why people get frustrated. Reading her is because she is just always doing the exact opposite, or is doing exactly what she's criticizing someone else for doing. Seeing that over and over and over again, you're seeing a hypocrite, and that can be tough to watch. But you have to see her growth as well, right? That's the important part.
That's true. That makes her a dynamic character who actually learns in the long run.
But man, it's just like, okay, slapping me in the face with the salmon. I get it. Like, I can smell the fish. I'm not sure that analogy worked, but moving on.
Nynaeve does sit down with Moghedien and works on detecting a man's channeling with her. Which
we later learned from Moghedien was not a legit way to do it and is designed to cause headaches.
I forgot about that. It's a little surprising that Nynaeve doesn't ever see it happen, or it's not more obvious from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would do if I was in Moghedien's position. You wouldn't want to do anything catastrophic, because then it would be obvious, you know.
But you teach her, like, it's like teaching someone slightly wrong
yeah.
way to do calculus, you know? And, like,
Yeah.
they keep calculating it, and they keep getting the wrong answer. And you're like, no, you messed up right there. You're like, but I added 2 to the exponent, like you said. And you're like, yeah, I don't know why that's not working.
You just need to work harder.
Yeah, just work harder. And it's like the method doesn't work at all. So here's my favorite evidence for this in this scene. Well, I mean, obviously we hear later she makes that claim that, like, hey, I taught her this stupid method. It didn't work. I wasted her time. That's what I was doing. That's her self-defense. But here we see a tightness appeared around Moghedien's eyes because she's feeling the headache that Nynaeve is feeling because she's wearing the bracelet. And she rubbed at her head sometimes. But underneath the fear of the bracelet carried a current of what almost seemed contentment. And that's contentment because she's causing Nynaeve pain and wasting her time. Nynaeve supposed that even when you did not want to teach, it must bring a certain satisfaction. And that is
She's
not where the
satisfied.
contentment... Yep. She's satisfied. She's causing you pain. Not that she's distracting you. So I just love that little... and knowing that that Moghedien is messing with her with that weave just makes that scene so much better. And to see her, like, manipulating Nynaeve. Now, it's one of her few accomplishments. Obviously, Nynaeve got a lot of information out of her.
I think Moghedien kind of knows she can exploit these people because they'll just never be as cruel or brutal as she and her colleagues will be, you know. Nynaeve is going to beat her until it works. It's just not what she's like. Cadsuane will.
Yeah, right.
That's Cadsuane and Moghedien later, right? Or this is how we're going to break her? Was that Moghedien?
Semrog.
Thank you.
That's when, right before she makes her eat the bowl of gruel.
Yeah, like spanks her or something. I'm vaguely remembering this storyline.
Oh, was it Beans? That's right, it was Beans. Beats her with spanks her
Good
with
old
a hairbrush.
hairbrush.
Humiliates her rather than makes her feel pain. Semrog was expecting pain. She wasn't expecting the humiliation.
Yeah, to be treated like a child.
Yeah, we actually got through that in an hour once we got started, which is super short for us for even for a normal sized chapter, much less a longish chapter. But yeah, there's just a lot of like we said in the beginning, Nynaeve introspection, recap.
A lot of like tension in her mind, looking, hoping, praying that Lan is still alive somewhere, clutching that ring.
A lot of insight into Nynaeve's personality, but nothing I think that we necessarily needed to.
A lot of big events, except the emissary from the White Tower arrives.
But I like the way that he hides his little clues in all the noise. Like there's all this sort of her thinking, and there's little bits of information scattered throughout that just little diamond nuggets in the gold.
Nynaeve will always be one of my favorites.
So this is we're definitely not skipping over this because we're like, oh, Nynaeve chapter. But go read the chapter and enjoy the tasty hypocrisy.
Delicious hypocrisy.
Delicious hypocrisy. Oh.
Everyone's doing it.
Almost as tasty as beans off a floor.
She was not sure how long the lesson went on, with Moghedien murmuring, almost, and not quite. But when the door banged open again, she nearly lifted straight up off the mattress. The sudden bolt of fear from Moghedien would have accompanied howling in another woman. "Have you heard, Nynaeve?" Elaine asked, pushing the door to. "There's an emissary from the tower, from Elida." Nynaeve forgot the words she would have shouted if her heart had not been clogging her throat. She even forgot her headache. "An emissary? You're sure?" "Of course I'm sure, Nynaeve. Do you think I'd come running for gossip? The whole village is aflutter." "I don't know why," Nynaeve said sourly. The grating inside her skull was back, and all the goose mint in her scrip of herbs under the bed would not have quieted the burning in her stomach. Would the girl never learn to knock? Moghedien had both hands pressed to her belly, as though she could use some goose mint as well. "We did tell them Elida knew about Saladar." "Maybe they believed us," Elaine said, dropping onto the foot of Nynaeve's bed. and maybe they didn't, but this drove it to home. Elida knows where we are, and likely what we are up to. Any of the servants could be her eyes and ears, maybe even some of the sisters. I caught a glimpse of the emissary, Nynaeve. Pale yellow hair and blue eyes that could freeze the sun. A red, named Tarna Fear, Valane said. One of the warders who was keeping guard escorted her in. When she looks at you, she could be looking at a stone. Nynaeve looked at Moghedien. We're done with the lesson for now. Come back in an hour, and you can make the beds. She waited until Moghedien had gone, tight-lipped and gripping her skirts and fists, then turned to Elaine. What message did she bring? They certainly didn't tell me, Nynaeve. Every Aes Sedai I passed was wondering the same thing. I heard when Tarna was told she'd be received by the Hall of the Tower. She laughed, and not as if she was amused. You do not think... Elaine chewed at her underlip for a moment. You don't think they could really decide to... Go back? Nynaeve said incredulously. Elida will want them to come the last 10 miles on their knees and the final mile on their bellies. Even if she didn't. Even if this red says, come home, all is forgiven, and dinner's waiting. Do you think they could brush aside Loghain so easily? Nynaeve, I said I could brush aside anything to make the White Tower whole again. Anything. You don't understand them the way I do. There were Aes Sedai in the palace from the day I was born. The question now is, what is Tarna saying to the Hall, and what are they saying to her? Nynaeve rubbed her arms irritably. She had no answers, only hopes. And her weather sense told her that that hailstorm that was not there was beating the roofs of Saladar like drums. The feeling went on for days.
So Super Skylake brings up a good point. The fact that male channeling weave is the one that Moghedien teaches them that doesn't work, does a really good job of hiding Arengar.
Do you think Moghedien knows?
That was my question, because it seems like she was captured before Arengar was resurrected, right?
Yeah.
So she wouldn't know about the man who could channel the female who could channel the male half of the power.
All the Forsaken were talking about, well, a large group of the Forsaken were talking about Moghedien disappearing, but, it's not like anyone's looking for her.
Right. So I guess it is possible that she could have, he's saying she could have gotten orders in her dreams.
She could have, and even not. Shaidar Haran can go all sorts of places, for instance.
And we do know that it's known that she's there, right? Like, she's freed by Arengar.
Yeah.
But I do think that I think she is shocked that Arengar she's like surprised that it hurts Arengar when she's freed, so I don't think at this point she knows. I think she's totally shocked that Arengar...
I don't remember seeing that scene or like any communication between the two.
It's a flashback.
Okay.
So yeah, when she has she's being tortured and she has the whole dream where she's reliving that over and over and over again when she's freed, brought to Sheol and mind trapped. And so she remembers being freed, and in that she is shocked. She's surprised at Arengar.
I'm nodding. Oh.
All right.
That was actually a pretty fun chapter.
Yeah.
They're always fun. Aww.
Kelsey. We're like, all right, let's turn off recording, and Kelsey pops up. Did I make it in time?
Oh, bummer.
As we said it. Oh, that was great. That was great. Perfect timing. All right, on 3, 2, 1, stop. So I was saying I was reading Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence. That's Red Sister, Grey Sister, Holy Sister. I've already read his Thorin series. And I was just saying both of those series, while good, aren't really for me. Thorin series is a little too grimdark. It's a little too violence and blood. Red Sister is less that, and a little more plot, but at the same time, it's got some stuck in high school vibes to me. But I was having some trouble finishing it because my Audible app was crashing. So whenever I tried to listen to Audible, after about 40 seconds, the app would just crash. Didn't matter what I did. I did a whole uninstall, reinstall cycle. It was crazy. And so I put it out on Twitter. I was like, guys, I tried Googling for a solution, couldn't find anything. So let me find the tweet really quick. And I was just like, hey, what's going on? And Audible, of course, responded and was no help whatsoever. They were like, please send your details to us so we can figure out what the problem is. But I want to shout out to Eric Cox, 0126, who said, if you are listening to the app on the iPhone, go to Settings, scroll down to Audible, then make sure Media and Apple Music is turned off. It was a simple switch, and it fixed the problem. And apparently it's a fairly common problem out there, so if you're having trouble with Audible on the iPhone, it's just a switch in Settings. So that was going Settings, Audible, and turn off Media and Apple Music.
Is this an iTunes thing? Can we blame iTunes for this?
Probably.
It's usually pretty
It's
safe
an interaction
to
between
blame
Audible.
iTunes.
I'm guessing it happened when I updated my phone to the latest OS, 13.5. Software update 13.5.1. So I think it's 13.5 or 13.5.1 broke Audible for me. So if you're having the same problem, I wanted to put it out there. There's a setting that will fix it, because I listen to Audible all day, every day. I have spent a lot of money in Audible, and I'm pretty pissed when I can't.
That's fair.
The only upside, the only reason I wasn't completely angry, is they do let you download the books as just MP3s, and then I just loaded it into Apple iBooks and played it that way. It was a workaround, but it was fine.
I'm nodding.
But, man, when your app crashes after 40 seconds consistently, and there's, like, a lot of people on the internet complaining about it, maybe you should fix that. Or at least, like, make it easy to figure out what the solution is.
I've been threatening to, but I'm getting pretty ready to listen to audiobooks. I look at my podcast app sometimes right now, and I'm like, news? Nah. I had a week or two where I just couldn't really. I mean, I still follow the headlines because I'm a total junkie, but I didn't do any in-depth analysis for like a couple weeks. I burned out. I couldn't even make myself. I have been doing a lot of random research and reading about my homestead dreams, and when I was out visiting family, I talked to two older cousins. There are two guys who live out there. One kind of went after the other, and they both bought homes and things. And I spent a lot of time listening to their advice on credit and how to build it, how to make sure you're ready before you do anything. And like I always say, I'm years away, but I'd like to start preparing.
Well, when you say, tell me a little more about homesteading. Is that building your own home? Is that just trying to find a space? Or?
Homestead dreams, but yeah, like I'd like to find a home and slowly build a self-sufficient property, like solar panels and composting toilet, or septic if I can't do the composting toilet, and so on. Grow a lot of food. Yeah, me and a radio bird fell down a hole talking about this for like an hour a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It's just fun to think about. Some ducks and chickens so we can have eggs and slowly build it up over time,
Yeah.
And you don't have to get too far out of some major cities, which is why I thought like the Raleigh area might be worth looking at, but I don't know. And I have family there, so that's nice too.
That does always help.
Yeah. It would be nice to just have people to visit. I was thinking about visiting my cousin, and then I was like, cases are surging, this, that, and the other. And then I realized he was kind of asking me not just to hang out, but kind of needed a friend. All right, sure, I'm doing it. I faithfully quarantined for almost 4 months. I guess almost 4 months. We're a week short, I think, now. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I'll quarantine on the other end. Julia's sister-in-law is going to have a kid in like a week or two, so I may be a couple days late, but also I don't think you're even allowed to go to the hospital. That's not a thing right now, so it doesn't matter if I'm a couple days late in my quarantine.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just at this point, like, the in 10 days, the gravy train stops. So if I want to keep paying my bills, I got to go back to work.
We'll see. Uncertainty is no fun.
Especially since, oh, Jesus, we had 70,000 cases today.
In the States?
Yeah. 71.7. It's not even over. Today's not even over yet.
I don't even know what to say about that. Isn't that? I feel like that's like double, or not quite, but almost double the last highest number that I heard, which was, I think, in the 40s.
Well, last 2 days were in the 60s. Day before that was 50s. 2 days before that was 50s. Day before that was 40s. Which is just a crazy rate.
Both my cousins seemed fairly ambivalent. They're both working. Didn't seem very worried about much, but again, they also live like, I can't walk down the street without breathing the same air as other people. Like, I can't leave my house without that happening. Where they live, it's like I could go running without a mask on. Like his neighbor is the guy that he works for, so they just kind of like share this property. Really nice guy. And like when I wanted to go for a run, I could just like run on paths because their properties there's no fencing. He's got like 5 acres, and his boss has like a lot. He owns like an enormous amount of forest behind his place, which you can see in the distance. I feel like to make clear from my cousin's place. That's what it's like.
I've been sort of always joked about like, haha, I'm going to move to Canada someday. But I'm not really joking anymore. Like, because I have the benefit of being Canadian, right? Like, I was born there. So
yeah, you can
I'm
actually do that.
I can actually do that. I'm not a typical American who's like, I want to move to Canada. I'm like, no, I could show my birth certificate at the border and cross and then go into, I don't know anything about Canada, so I'd probably have to learn a few things. I'm sure our Wolfkin would help me out, but like,
yeah, we got friends.
I'd have to go and get a Canadian passport with my birth certificate, and then I'd be a Canadian citizen. But I mean, I am technically a Canadian citizen. That's the whole thing, right? Like, because I was born there after, and so I'm looking at like, hell, just getting at, especially, I think that I don't really have any ties here right now. Kind of have a job that I haven't worked in months.
Yeah. I hear that. This is part of the reason why I felt, maybe, I don't know what the right word is, but a little kind of empowered to go scout and look at this place that, my cousins who I keep in touch with enjoy living. So it's like, if the world's ending.
Right.
I don't have a job right now. I don't have, the connections I have in the city don't really matter. I don't know if I'm going back into the industry that I worked in. Like this, I have, and I'm not broke. So I'm like pretty wide open right now as far as options.
No, and this is time to sit back and, take stock. And like what we're doing here.
Yeah. What do you want to do? Yeah.
We don't have to, we're not in the same building right now. We don't have to be in the same place. We like being in the same place. We like being able to meet up. That's important. But like I said, there's nothing that's keeping us in this particular city right now. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially in the food industry. Like the problem is I think that there's like the Portland food industry is crippled and is going to be crippled for a long time.
We're definitely worried about some people that I know. Yeah. Oh, another thing that was attractive to me about visiting family was that one of my cousins might take over this gentleman's business. Who's an older guy. He's in his late 60s, and he has like my cousin and one other foreman, and they've had trouble getting enough laborers to really handle all the work that they're getting. It's like, man, this is an opportunity. And, I don't have to stay there either.
Well, what's Julia thinking?
She's feeling fairly open too. She wants to hang around and be there for the birth of her brother's kid, if that's possible, or at least nearby. And but if I were to do something like this, I can't move fast. If I were to move, that would be a slow process. Probably a year would be fast for something like that to happen. But I think about options. I want the future to be like. so talky.
That's he's getting taken to the park. So this is the daily ritual when you're putting the harness on him. That's his excited. I'm going to the park, and like he makes it so hard to put the harness on because he's like jumping,
dancing around,
dancing around and making noise, and yeah.
This you reminded me. I saw this a couple of days ago because I just flick through and look at these ads sometimes for fun. I can't actually afford anything. But that one was right on the Canadian border. That's what made me think about it. It's like, if you ever got to run, if it ever gets really crazy, be like right there. I think that was the one anyway. And look, it's cheap for what that is. Yep, this one is it's real close to the border.
I mean, at what point do we start the Borderlander, cult? The Wheel of Time, get a big chunk of self-sustaining land and just start worshiping the way of the leaf. We've talked about this. You and I have had these conversations over a little Two Rivers Tabak and some Usquai.
Got enough references and stuff. We could definitely build some kind of philosophy based around. Yeah.
You stop for daily prayer and we play the Wheel of Time over the loudspeakers.
It's like a call to prayer thing.
Totally. Or even like a dystopian future of people working while Wheel of Time plays over really bad loudspeakers.
Sounds like, oh gosh, that cult in South America, except they all killed themselves. Was it Heaven's Gate? Oh, no, not Heaven's Gate. It was Jonestown. That's it. Or, yeah, Jonestown.
I'm not familiar.
Ooh, that's a good one. Particularly creepy. And when I say good, I mean a really creepy read. And that really happened. And there's recordings and stuff from the like loudspeakers play to the cult all day.
Oh, those are the Kool-Aid folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Margaret's nailed it. OG drinking the Kool-Aid. Like that's where that phrase came from. It started in the States. I don't remember everything. And then they like bought land down there somewhere to go live and be self-sufficient. But it didn't work out for some reason.
Gotcha.
It was a Christian-y, I think, thing. Yeah.
Well, I will just say that no religion we start will end in suicide pacts. Can we just lay that out there?
Yeah. You can just leave the way of the leaf, like.
Right.
We're not even going to do that shunning thing. You can come back.
No.
Yeah, just hang. I think most of this cult is going to be building a library and collecting books. Collecting information. That could be we'll work on this. Building a library that we'll need after the apocalypse. Thank you, Aradia. We will join your cult.
I mean, we've got to have the apple trees for the brandy. Or for the cider.
I'm down.
We got to have wines for the brandy.
Northern Washington and Southern Canada is good for that.
We got to have the fields for the Two Rivers Tabak.
Mm-hmm.
And then just various plants, of course. Yeah. We need the grain for the Usquai. A little corn, a little some barley. No peaches.
Nah, you can't have peaches up there. Well, I mean, it depends on where we are. Oh, no peaches because what? I'm just slow.
Because they're poisonous. Cherries. There's cherry trees. There's a cherry tree a couple of blocks from here that's blooming, and I was able to just pick cherries off of it and eat it. Those are delicious. I love the Northwest. There's so many fruit trees up here that just go this time of year. And you can just walk around the city just picking them, which is actually a good thing to do with my dog. And we just walk and eat. Well, I eat. He poops.
Circle of life, man.
The fig ones where we got caught. Remember that?
So when we were just like reaching up and picking fruit out of a tree, and we like looked over at the house, and there was like a woman looking at us from the porch.
Yeah, totally. And I think we
didn't
like
yell anything or
something.
anything.
No. We just saw her sitting there. We're like, or I think you said like But you said something to her. You're like, "Thanks for letting us pick your brains."
Or something pathetic, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know. I
Well,
do
let's go
remember
back
looking
and
up and
listen
being
to
like, "Ooh."
Yep.
I don't think most people really care. All those
No, so
sidewalk
much of the
trees
fruit goes
just,
rotting.
yeah. There's a cherry tree near my place too, and they're just all over the ground.
Yeah. There's a great blueberry bush that was going nuts for a while. I had about 2 weeks of really tasty blueberries.
Oh, Murtaugh, you remember that story? I'm sure we told it on the podcast because I think I was walking around with you right before a recording.
Yeah. I think it was one of those things where we like got back and told this. It's like
That just happened.
this is one of those things I find that people who are binging will often be like, "Hey, remember that story you told a month ago?" And I'm like, "Dude, that was 3 years ago for me, man." Like, I barely remember that it happened, much less telling you the story.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?